What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the Great League Remix Cup once again, and the team we're going to look at today is Pangoro, Grumpig, and Carbink. Now the main focus of today's video will be Grumpig, because Grumpig is ranked pretty low in this cup, and I think it is a very dominant safe swap. This thing, Up Energy, has fantastic coverage that is basically unwallable in the open Great League, or really any meta that involves fighting and Ghost. And pairing it up with Pangoro and Carbink, you got a little bit of bulk in the back, but alignment based, and then Pangoro needs shields. Grumpig can kind of force the alignment depending on what we see on the lead. And the reason I wanted to look at Grumpig is on the right, and that is because it is one of the few Pokemon that can core break the Wigglytuff plus Diggersby core. So that was the main focus of this. I was seeing a lot of Wigglytuff plus Diggersby, so without further ado, let's hop into the battles. Okay, into the first match, we've got Pangoro into Gyarados picking up a pretty terrible lead, and we're kind of core broken actually by this Pokemon, because Gyarados, not only as a flyer resisting my Karate Chops and close combats on Pangoro, has super effective Crunch that it outpastes to for my Grumpig. I end up going for the Aqua Tail catch as my opponent makes it to the back-to-back charge moves. Did we get the catch? Yes, we did. That is absolutely huge, but now in comes Drapion. Fortunately, Drapion will be outpaced because I did sneak a couple Psy Waves through on that Gyarados. And Dynamic Punch will do some solid neutral damage, but now the opponent can look to overfarm and pick up the knockout with probably just an Aqua Tail would do the damage. They end up full sending the Crunch that does pick up the knockout, and now have a decision to make. I decided to come in Pangoro, knowing that they can only go straight Aqua Tail. However, I will put up a shield and look for the full farm down. If the opponent gets another charge move, I will just shield it up. Back in comes the Gyarados. I'm going to shield this up. I'm going to bank all of this energy. I'm going to farm up to back-to-back Night Slashes and then pivot into my Carbink. In the back is an Alolan Sandslash up 2 shields. So this game is pretty much over. All the opponent has to do is basically farm up to 3 moves. They're going to go for drill run number 1. That does well over 50% after these powder snows have connected. So here comes a Rock Slide. We end up grabbing the first shield. All they have to do is farm up to the back-to-back drill runs before I make it to another charge move. But the opponent decides to overfarm, allowing me to grab a shield. But no, they let that go, knowing that I have energy banked on the Pangoro. And then they get fully farmed down on the Drapion, and we are able to take that win. Into next match, picking up another core breaker on the lead. This time I'm going to save swap into my Grumpig, because I'm going to play to the win condition that if I get an energy lead on my Pangoro, maybe I can boost and find a way to through that Clodsire matchup, but I kind of need an energy lead in order to do that, because I need to spam out the Night Slashes if I want any chance of boosting. That said, I end up luring out a Shadow Feraligatr with my Grumpig safe swap, as Shadow Claws are super effective, but we can actually still grab 2 shields in this matchup. And now the opponent will fire off the energy, knowing that I would make it to a 3rd charge move. And now all I have to do is send in the Pangoro. I end up going for a catch of the Crunch, or I don't know what I was going for, a Hydro Cannon catch, I guess, onto the Carbink, completely sacrificing it here, and then I'm just going to run with Pangoro with a shield and hope that it's enough to win this game. I'm basically banking on me getting a boost with one of these Night Slashes, but they make the right play. They pivot instantly into their Clodsire, but here comes Night Slash number 1. Let's see how much damage this does. Not very much, but we get the boost, and holy cow, our 1-win condition has arrived. So I'm going to go for Night Slash number 2. That does big damage to the opponent, and now all I have to do is throw a Night Slash on the Scampy with the next charge move, but I'm going to call a bait. The opponent goes for the Stone Edge bait, knowing that I was likely to shield. I'm 2 times boosted, and this is my final Pokemon, a Glassy Pangoro. A very easy bait, one would think, but then I get a 2nd boost, and in the back is a Lapras. They're going to get outpaced. They go for the catch onto the Feraligatr, but we hold on to our energy, and we are able to take that win. That was an incredibly unlikely win, but somehow we are able to pull it off. But a terrible lead in the next match. Pangoro into Florges. The opponent is, of course, just going to stay in this matchup, but I'm going to pivot into my Grumpig. Grumpig will be outpaced. The opponent will connect with a Chilling Water, permanently lowering my attack in the safe swap position, but they're staying in this matchup, so something is clearly wrong with my opponent's team in the back. I'm going to go for a Shadow Ball. I end up grabbing a shield, and now in comes a Shadow Ho-Oh. Really cool spice for my opponent, but I'm able to make it to yet another Shadow Ball, and even though my attack is lowered, this is going to do big damage, so instead I'm going to pivot into the Carbink, knowing that my opponent's switch timer is not yet up. And now I can just no shield any charge move here. They're completely walled. I get the full rock throw farm down, and in the back is a Lapras. We're also able to outpace the Lapras, make it to a rock slide, and rock slide will do some solid chip, putting them into the yellow health range. And at this point, this looks like a Pangoro sweep. I could just shield this and then look for a farm down, and if I can't quite get it, go for the catch on my Pangoro, and that's exactly what I'm going to do, knowing that I can survive one Sparkling Aria, and then I can keep some health on my Carbink for the Florges. But I am able to make it to a close combat against the Florges, and even though this is resisted damage, it's going to do massive damage, putting them into the red health range. I can even come with the Grumpig here, knowing that I have more fast move damage than my opponent. This forces them to throw their energy, dumping a Chilling Water, and now my Carbink is not 1x lowered, but now they do get to a super effective Chilling Water. I will end up committing the shield, knowing that I can just fully farm down the Lapras. I actually leave with a Rock Slide loaded. The opponent knows this, so they resign the match, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Pangoro versus Pangoro. So let me show you how to play out this matchup. You always want to call the bait. They almost never don't bait, and you should also go for the close combat, because if you go for a Night Slash and they no shield it as well, then it can put you in a pretty awkward situation. I'm not going to win CMP because I don't have Raid IV Pangoro. I end up getting the boost, which is absolutely massive. I'm looking for the full Karate Chop farm. Now we get a simultaneous KO, but the opponent ended up committing a shield, so we are in a fantastic position. But now it's up to the Pokegods who gets the alignment that they want. It's Grumpig into Drapion. I try and go for the catch of the Crunch onto my Carbink, but I'm unsuccessful, and now the opponent can start spamming out these Aqua Tails. Aqua Tail number 1 will connect, but in the back is another Alolan Sandslash. We cannot escape these things. Fortunately, we still have our Grumpig alive, which means we can easily knock them out with a double super effective charge move in case they come into shield on one of these rock slides. The opponent will end up going for a drill run here. This is super effective damage. I will, of course, put a shield up. I'm looking for the catch on a Grumpig. I'm unsuccessful. The switch timer just not quite up. The opponent now will go for drill run number 2. I'm looking for the full farm down. Can I get it? Yes, I can. So the opponent instead pivots back into their Drapion. They make it to an Aqua Tail, but Aqua Tail is not enough to knock out from this range. I can now go for the rock slide, looking to grab that final shield from my opponent. If I grab the shield, I can instantly pivot into my Grumpig or force them to throw. In comes the Grumpig, but Grumpig will be outpaced. They will make it to one super effective Crunch, but it's not going to be enough to knock out. This was actually the CMP tie. We make it to the Dynamic Punch, and Dynamic Punch from this range picks up the knockout on the Drapion. We get the Psywave farm down of the Sandslash, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Pangoro into Magnezone, so picking up a great lead. The opponent is going to safe switch into a Florges, and I actually don't have a great response to Florges on this team, so maybe not the best team building on my part, because not having an answer to a Fairy with a Pangoro on the lead seems kind of like a silly option. I can survive 2 Chilling Waters on the Florges, no problem, so I will let 2 of those go. It actually looks like I can survive 3 realistically if I need to, and now I'm going to full send the harder hitting Moonblast. Moonblast will do some solid shit, but because I'm 2x lowered, it will not knock out. But I do get the attack fall on the opponent. They have put me in range where Chilling Water nearly will knock out, but I will just let this go. They actually go for the slightly harder hitting Trailblaze, looking for the farm down. They can't even get it. We make it to a rock slide. This will do some solid chip, even though they're 2x lowered, but the opponent double shields their Florges. So very interesting plays by my opponent. I'm definitely just going to let these charge moves go. I know they're already boosted, and a boosting Chilling Water will do some solid chip, but they end up giving up switch. In comes a Feraligatr. Feraligatr will be hit with the Dynamic Punch, and that should put them in the range where I can overfarm and go for the Night Slash to pick up the knockout. The opponent ended up not throwing, which is why I didn't overfarm and just went for the Night Slash right away, but they lose all of that energy. I have a very healthy Pangoro against a Magnezone, so the opponent will just resign the match. Into the next match, picking up another good lead, we've got Pangoro into the Dugong. The opponent safe switches into a Wigglytuff, and in comes Carbink. Now, you might be wondering, why are you coming in Carbink as opposed to your Grumpig? And the reason I'm responding with Carbink is just because Carbink is so extremely bulky, plus Swift is resisted, and that is their only stab charge move. So this forces them to go for Icy Winds, and even if they do go for Icy Winds, it's not going to be enough to knock out. Charms do very little damage to the Carbink, whereas Rock Throws are really adding up on the Wigglytuff. I will let a second Icy Wind go. It's still not going to be enough. In comes a Torterra, and now in comes Grumpig. Grumpig likely to be outpaced here. They will make it to a Frenzy Plant, but I can commit the shield, and then I will outpace my opponent to back-to-back charge moves before they're able to make it to a second frenzy. So I'm going to throw after 4 mud slaps, going for dynamic punch number 1, and if my opponent commits the shield, I will be able to make it to dynamic punch number 2. And is my opponent willing to give up 2 shields here when I have a Pangoro on the front? Yes, they are. Instead, the opponent's going to pivot back into the Wigglytuff, basically sacrifice that for some reason, give us the whole farm down, and now in comes Dugong. Dugong now to be hit with a super effective dynamic punch. This feels like a Pangoro lure out, but I'm going to bite because all I have to do now is let this go. I'm more worried about a Frenzy Plant. I can live an Icy Wind, and all I have to do is farm up to back-to-back charge moves. So I'm going to farm up to the Night Slash plus the Close Combat, expecting that I win CMP up against the Torterra. Night Slash picks up the knockout on the Dugong, and now we come out with a Close Combat loaded, and Close Combat easily knocks out the Torterra, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Pangoro into Venusaur. So this is a rough lead. Once again, ABA weak to this Pokemon. And this is actually a Pokemon that I'm going to be showcasing in tomorrow's video, as I have a team that I ran with that was pretty solid with Venusaur. That said, if I stay in this matchup and play the 2-shield scenario, I can get the Venusaur fairly low just because we do have that pacing advantage. I now will go for Night Slash number 2 on the CMP tie, winning CMP. Night Slash number 2 likely to grab a shield from the opponent if they don't want to lose the 1-0 shield scenario, and that's exactly what my opponent does. Now I'm going to fire off a Sludge, and now all I have to do is make it to the Night Slash. I throw 1 turn before they do, so that in case they overfarm, I can make it to another Night Slash, and if they don't, they're going to be in a Grumpig farm down range. They decide to overfarm, but they overfarm by 1 too many, allowing me to get to yet another Night Slash, and Night Slash picks up the knockout on the Venusaur. In comes a Dugong, but Dugong will actually be hit with a super effective Close Combat. This is going to do massive damage to the Dugong, nearly one-shotting that Pokemon. In comes the Carbink to get the Rock Throw farm down, and in the back is Sandslash. So once again, my opponent has that Sandslash in the back. A very tricky Pokemon to deal with this team once Pangoro is gone. But that said, we can go for the Rock Slide. That'll do some very solid chip. I'm basically just going to stay in with the Carbink and force them to throw their energy, because Grumpig has a double super effective charge move that we can pace to pretty quickly. As long as the opponent throws right away, we're going to be in an okay spot, and that's pretty much what they do. I know I can live any 1 charge move on the Grumpig, so I'm not too worried. In comes the Grumpig. We actually just get the full Sidewave farm down, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Pangoro into Fortress. So this is a pretty neutral lead. Bug Bites are neutral, or Volt Switch is neutral, depending on what my opponent is running. They can only go straight Sand Tomb here or Earthquake, as Rock Tomb would be resisted. Most still go Rock Tomb anyways, just because Pangoro is so glassy. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to full send a Close Combat and then catch onto my Grumpig. This way, I can absorb the energy on a bulkier Pokemon, and I still have a bunch of energy on my Pangoro, and I don't take that charge move, which is realistically all you want to do. And we end up luring out a Dugong, because Dugong doesn't want to face that Pangoro, but they end up coming into a Grumpig, which has that dynamic punch for coverage, which is why I really like this Pokemon as a safe swap. They go for the Icy Wind. That's not enough to knock out, allowing me to get to a dynamic punch here, and dynamic punch from this range will actually grab a shield from my opponent. At this point, I don't really want to give them a shield back, so instead I'm going to come back in with the Carbink, and the opponent I think blind through an Icy Wind there, which means they're not even going to go for a super effective charge move. I'm looking for the full Rock Throw farm down, not sure if I'm going to get it, so in comes the Florges. Florges will be hit with a Rock Slide before they can lower my attack. Of course, they will put up the shield and now go for the Chilling Water to lower my attack, but I have the ability to reset here, so I'm going to take the Chilling Water. I'm going to farm up to another charge move. I can either commit a shield or not. I can live this, but I will end up committing the shield, as I have 2 shields left in play, and now I'm going to reset that because I can go for the Close Combat. This will do big damage, and now that my attack is no longer lowered on the Carbink, we're going to be in a very good position. The opponent does end up getting the full farm down. Back in comes the Fortress, but Fortress is going to get fully Rock Throw farm down. Are they going to come back with the Florges? If they do, that is okay, because we can just shield this up. Chilling Water, they're only at 1 of them here, so I'm just going to make sure they don't get to a second. Now I'm going to pick up the knockout with the Rock Slide, and at this point, this game is over. Rock Slide knocks out the Florges. I'm able to fully Rock Throw farm down the Dugong, and we are able to take that win. Into, I believe, the final match of the video. We've got another tough lead, but 2 better answers in the back, so this time we can just save switch into our Grumpig. The opponent will throw on 6 here, so I am not going to be shielding this up. The opponent does just go for the air cutter, but in comes a Lickitung. Now Lickitung will take super effective damage from these dynamic punches, and because they decided to stay and throw energy, I'm actually going to be able to outpace the opponent, winning CMP with the dynamic punch to their body slam, and 2 dynamic punches picks up the knockout cleanly on the Lickitung. And flipping switch is absolutely massive because we have a Carbink now on their Charizard, and it just depends what is that final Pokemon in the back. The opponent unable to even get the full farm down before I make it to yet another charge move. This dynamic punch will probably knock out the opponent. Yeah, they're deep in the red, so they're forcing him with a shield, but they ended up just committing a shield on a Charizard, which had absolutely no play. But unfortunately for me, in the back is a Poliwrath, and I'm not going to be able to make it to back-to-back close combat. So full setting the charge move. The opponent does end up putting a shield, but now that means that all I have to do is make it to a Moonblast here. I'm going to be double shielding. Even if they go for double Icy Wind bait, this game is still over because all I need is 1 Moonblast to pick up the knockout. All I have to do is watch for that catch. So just make sure that counter goes through, and I will be in a good position. I end up double shielding. The opponent doesn't even go for a Scald bait, but they don't even go for the catch. Instead, they try and snipe with the Charizard, but Blastoise does very little damage to the Carbink. I would be able to make it to the charge move, so the opponent resigns the match, and we are able to take that win. But yeah, that is Grumpig on the save swap position. Really great core with a Pangoro. Of course, you saw a couple times in this meta that I was core broken, and that was mostly to do with Carbink, to be completely honest. I think Carbink had a little bit of trouble with alignment in some of these matchups, but it did cover a lot of the flying weaknesses that I was seeing on Pangoro. And then Grumpig on the safe swap position, of course, just a neutral monster with an energy lead, beating so many things in the meta. That neutral coverage into literally everything is so good. Just avoid those darks that you can, avoid the ghosts that you can, and even if you can't, you've got super effective coverage into both of them, right? So that's why that Pokemon is so strong. But yeah, before I wrap up this video, I do want to say thank you to the expert trainer members on this channel: Benny Hemlock, Dr. Green Mustache, Sohan Patil, Eliana, Perry G, Blue Nation, Peter Rushworth, Alright 504, Champus Clips, Sons of Code, and an extra special thank you to the Legend Trainer members on this channel: Andrew Pitten, Moosachute, Noodleman, Speedster, Estros, Fast City Boss, and CD Slaskas. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace!